Ever get that shock when you look at your heating bill or the price at the pump and just think, where did that number come from? Well, a lot of the time, the reason is happening thousands of miles away. So let's get into it. We're going to explore exactly how a conflict in one corner of the globe can send out ripples that, you guessed it, end up hitting your wallet. And check this out. This is a real quote from someone in the UK, and it perfectly sums up the frustration so many people are feeling. Right? This isn't some abstract economic theory. It's people doing daily math, trying to figure out if it costs more to heat their home office or to just drive to work. This is the real-world impact of a global energy crisis. And we are not talking about a small price hike here. Get this. One resident in the UK ordered heating oil, and a few days later, the company just canceled on him. The new quote? 3 times higher. That is not a gradual increase. That is a sudden, massive price shock that leaves families totally scrambling. Okay, so let's start where this really hurts the most, right at home. We're going to look at the immediate fallout this energy crisis is having on regular households, and we'll focus specifically on what's happening in the UK. So in the UK, some households are way more vulnerable than others. I mean, take Northern Ireland, where a staggering 2/3 of homes depend on heating oil. And here's the thing, unlike gas and electricity, there's no price cap on that oil, nothing to protect them from these insane market swings. We're hearing these just awful stories about pensioners, people with health problems who are now worried sick about even turning on their heat. The government is taking a look at its fuel policies, but with this new conflict, prices could go even higher. So it all begs the question, right? Why? What is making everything so incredibly volatile? To really understand why your local supplier might suddenly triple their price, we have to zoom out from what's happening in your neighborhood and look at the much bigger global picture. And that brings us right to our second section. Because this isn't just a local problem, not by a long shot. We are smack in the middle of a global oil shock, and the events driving it are really complex and, frankly, they're unfolding by the day. So here's the bottom line. Global oil prices have skyrocketed. And honestly, there's no sign they're coming back down anytime soon. The main reason? Geopolitical instability. When a part of the world that's essential for producing and shipping oil becomes a conflict zone, the entire global market feels that tremor. All right, so let's get specific. Let's pinpoint the geographic heart of all this disruption. We're talking about a very narrow channel of water that has become one of the biggest global flashpoints right now, the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is, well, it's a huge deal. It's this incredibly important narrow waterway. It is the only way for ships to get from the Persian Gulf out to the open ocean, which makes it one of the world's most critical choke points for oil. To put it simply, if you control this little stretch of water, you essentially have a chokehold on a massive portion of the world's entire energy supply. Okay, so here's the breakdown of the conflict. Iran has announced it's blocking the strait to ships connected to its enemies. Now, in what seems to be a response, U.S. and Israeli strikes have hit Karg Island. That's a terminal that is absolutely crucial for Iran's economy, handling something like 90% of its oil exports. Iran then retaliated with drone attacks on oil facilities in the UAE. Things got so tense that former President Trump actually called on allies to send in warships to try and reopen the route. In this slide, this perfectly captures what people call the fog of war. On one side, you have the U.S. saying its strikes only hit military targets, not oil infrastructure. On the other side, Iran is insisting the strait is technically open, just, not to their enemies. This kind of conflicting information creates enormous uncertainty in the oil markets. And when traders get nervous, prices go up for every single one of us. But this uncertainty, it doesn't just move markets. It has a very real, very profound human cost. So let's shift gears now and take a look at the view from the ground to see how this conflict is actually affecting civilians who are living right in the middle of it. This is the reality for people in Tehran. A resident told the BBC they were woken up by explosions that shook the house to the core and that their heart was pounding. For them, this isn't some story on the news. It is a terrifying life or death event happening right outside their homes. The conflict has also spilled over with just devastating consequences. In southern Lebanon, an Israeli strike hit a medical center and killed 12 people, including doctors and paramedics. Now, Israel has accused Hezbollah of using those kinds of facilities for military activities. In a separate strike, an entire extended family of 8, including children, was killed. And again, Israel claimed operatives were there, but a surviving uncle insists they were all civilians. And listen to this powerful response from that surviving uncle. He says that far from weakening support for resistance groups, these actions actually make it stronger.
He said, "It makes us more loyal to them. I'm even more steadfast in my support now than I was before." It's just a stark, heartbreaking reminder of the complex human dynamics at play here.
So let's bring all of this full circle. We've looked at the global flashpoint, we've seen the human cost. But what does all of this actually mean for the future? And for that heating bill that lands on your doormat?
This chart really lays out the chain reaction perfectly. It's pretty straightforward, really. An attack on a tanker in the Middle East, that creates disruption and fear of a shortage. That fear almost immediately causes global prices to soar. A critical shipping route like the Strait of Hormuz gets blocked, and that creates extreme volatility, which leads to those sudden price hikes we saw earlier. It is a direct line from instability over there to higher costs for all of us right here. And all of this leaves us with one last really big question. When a missile strike in one part of the world can directly affect whether a pensioner can afford to heat their home halfway across the planet, you have to ask yourself, in a world this connected, is any conflict truly just regional? Maybe there's just no such thing anymore.